Hello, and welcome to this short tutorial stroke introduction to a new feature that has landed in a system that I use all the time now. So when I'm doing a presentation or a tutorial for whatever I'm doing, I use a system called GitPitch. So GitPitch is a markdown presentation tool. It allows you to work offline and online. It's very, very simple to use, and I would encourage you to check it out if you haven't done so already. But what I did want to talk to you about today was a thing that I first saw in a video from Scott Hanselman. So Scott Hanselman did a video, I'll put a link to this in the description of this video, but what Scott showed was how you could do a virtual PowerPoint screenshot system. So within PowerPoint you would set it up so that there were different sections of the presentation that was essentially a green screen. So what you could then do is take that into OBS and then manipulate OBS through PowerPoint to switch scenes. Now I thought this was fantastic, but because I use GitPitch almost all the time for when I'm doing presentations, this new amazing feature that Scott provided I wasn't able to use it. So I reached out to David at GitPitch, and he has since then put together a new functionality within GitPitch that allows me to control OBS in a very similar way. So what I've done now this is a very, very rudimentary examples of what you can do here. I am so far removed from a designer, so what I'm doing here is by no means the best implementation of this, but it's certainly a way of doing it. So what I'm going to show, hopefully, here is, if I go back to this one, so this is my presentation. So this is me using GitPitch Desktop. This is me changing the layout, the look and feel of the slides in the built-in editor that comes with GitPitch Desktop. And what I've done is I've essentially stubbed out an area of that slide that I can then manipulate within OBS. So if I switch over to here, what I'm showing now is through OBS, I'm showing you a display capture of that slide deck. Now what I can do, if I just come into here and I just navigate through this slide, all I'm doing here is pressing space on my keyboard. I've just flipped over to the next slide. And in that slide, there was a short code that said, change the scene in OBS. So in OBS, I've changed me being down here rather than back at the top. But if I go back to the previous slide, I'm still up here. So I went from up there to down there, and all I've done is I've just navigated a slide in GitPitch. Now you can make that as complicated as you want. So for example, I could come over here to the left hand side of the slide, and on the right, I could be showing things over there on the right hand side. And then the example that Scott also gave in the video is that if you wanted to make yourself into a little circle on a slide, you absolutely can do that. So this is the combination of manipulating OBS, so changing scenes in OBS, but doing it within the context of just the slide deck. So with very, very little addition to the slide, so if I go back to here, all you have to do is add this nomenclature into the start of your slide deck. So anytime you transition a slide, if you want to change the scene in OBS, all you have to do is give it a name here, and that name has to correspond exactly to a name of a scene within OBS. And as soon as you hit that slide will cause a transition to that scene in OBS. Now the way that that's done, and it's mentioned in the documentation that David's created here, is it's done through an OBS plugin. So there's an OBS plugin that's called the OBS WebSocket plugin. So all the, I'm saying all, what David's done within GitPitch is allowed the operation or the setting up of, let's maybe zoom in a little bit here, make this a little bit bigger. What David has done is you have to put a small amount of configuration into your YAML file for your presentation, and that literally tells GitPitch where to send some HTTP requests to cause the transition of the scene in OBS. And once you've done that, like I say, you just add this small amount of markdown into the start of the slide. And as long as you have a corresponding scene in OBS, whenever you transition to that slide on your slide deck, the scene will come up. So to go back through it again, if I go back to default here, so this is me again showing OBS. This is me showing the main GitPitch presentation through OBS. All I have to do then is navigate once to change the scene and change the slide. So I'm down here now. Then I go over to the other side, and then I go into a circle at the top of the screen. But it's incredibly useful. So in this lockdown world that we're in, where you're doing presentations, having to manipulate scenes in OBS whilst you're trying to do a presentation, you can take all of that away by simply putting a small amount of markdown into your GitPitch presentation. So incredibly useful, I think, incredibly cool as well. So I thank David for putting this together, and I hope that this has been useful to you. If you do have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I can attempt to answer them. So thank you very much.